Welcome to the writer reads The Runaway. This is part 3 of 3. This was the oldest of gods, the greatest, I was sure. Every facet of every element could be seen in its makeup. I could do nothing but stare. "I've brought you a servant," the king announced, gesturing at me. The being looked amused. "A manling?" it asked. "Surely your kind is too short-lived for the tasks I will set." My fear must have addled my mind, for I stepped forward, something in my spirit stirring as I faced the creature. There was kinship here, such as I'd never felt. Why this was, I could not tell. I remembered feeling a similar kinship with the high moors, possessing as I did the ability to fly with the breeze and feel with the earth. I'd run the moors as a child and grown to become a hunter and a forester, a carer of creatures and a finder of the lost. My abilities had been envied by many, and I had not learnt to hide them until it was too late. There had been things said, words spoken. I shook my head, sensing movement from the god thing before me. It had come closer. As I watched, a chamber appeared within the largest part of its body. I could not help but stare into its depths. Within that chamber, light flashed and colour flamed, the elements ebbing and flowing throughout. "Step forth," it commanded. "You have been boasted as having my blood in your veins. Let us see how much of my blood you carry, and how much of my spirit dwells within your soul." From the corner of my eye I saw the king grow pale. He opened his mouth as though to protest, then closed it again. I sensed the look that passed between them, and knew I could leave. I thought of the soldiers waiting in the garden, and recalled the oil bush burning in a pyre that would last for months. With the deliberateness of thought I recalled the faces of the raiders who had cursed the settlement's emptiness, and heard the king's explanation of the war he had waged on my land. I glanced toward him. His face was still pale, the lines of grief-wrought responsibility etched more deeply than before, and the jungle was lost in the mist grey of his eyes. Blocking my mind to the sudden compassionate alarm I sensed from his direction, I stepped forward. Within that glowing, pulsing chamber lay the truth of who I was, and when I stepped free from it once more, I would not only be a servant of the elemental High King, but its heir apparent, and as its heir I would recognize those who carried elemental blood, and lead them against creatures besieging our land, so that, with weapons made by a nation we thought our enemy, we could defend our home. The commander raised his head, sensing the warning carried by the breeze. He wondered if he had done the wrong thing in telling his men the truth, if they would follow him as trustingly into battle again. His eyes met those of one of his field commanders. The man nodded. "It was well done," the commander said, as others about the fire lifted their heads, scenting at the air as the warning reached them. "There are so many other ways it can be told. They wanted you to speak the truth." The commander bowed his head as another voice spoke. "It's no worse than others here have done." He glanced up to meet the gaze of a section sergeant, but the woman had turned to stare at the hill. She began to run for the horses even as he decided he should visit the troop campfires more often. It was something that would have to wait. The danger was almost upon them, and the time to strike was near. The weapon at his side began to sing, its keening taken up by other blades within the camp. The strange wail that belonged to the war bows joined with the keening, and the commander stepped over the log he had been sitting on. Young eyes glanced at him, fear and excitement warring in their depths, anxiety on the faces that framed them. "I haven't the time to tell you the truth of the trials I faced within the Old One's depths," he said. "That is a story for another day." They nodded, already checking the readiness of their weapons, each turning to tighten the buckles on their neighbour's armour. Nothing more needed to be said. The keening grew louder, and the commander sensed the presence of the approaching riders. His mount was suddenly at his side, nudging him as his aide-de-camp found him in the press and began to tighten the cinches on his armour. He, and all he led, had been waiting for this.